On today's See You Friday, Jesus grieved, Jesus wept, but it did not keep him from his mission. It did not keep him from being able to step forward and be steadfast in his faith, that what he was doing was the right thing at the right time for the right moment for all of history. All month long, we've been talking about love in its various forms on See You Friday. Today, we're going to talk about love as it relates to grief. Recently, within the last few years, I was put into the unique position to lose both of my grandparents, and it was very heavy and it was very traumatic because I have never lost a close relative like that yet before. I've been very fortunate and I've been very blessed. And to have people in my life who were so influential, as are my own parents, that was the nature of our relationship. Very similar to my own parents were the relationship that I had with my grandparents. And it was a very unique time in the sense that typically if you lose someone to death, you would think that that person would not want to continue to talk about them or continue to experience their life posthumously. However, in this case, I found the more that I got to talk about them, the more that I got to tell their stories, the better it made me feel. And grief, when in response to love, and love in response to grief, can be such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so today's See You Friday, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that grief doesn't just relate to people and when someone you love passes, whether a friend or a loved one or a direct relation or even a spouse, but that we can grieve the loss of jobs. We can grieve the loss of a pet. We can grieve the loss of opportunity. And we can even grieve in relation to sibling relationships. How many of us have found ourselves in a position to where we're feeling saddened at the fact that one of our own siblings has moved away? Well, that is also a form of grief, and allowing yourself to experience the process of loss and to be able to recognize that the reason why you're undergoing such heavy emotions is because of the love that you have experienced, the ability to be able to be in kinsmanship with someone else. And that's what happens when we lose a job, and for some reason we feel so sad after, and we wonder, why can't we just zip up our bootstraps and just proceed forward and keep moving? Well, it's because we entered into a relationship with that position, and that position now no longer being there causes us to actually grieve. So for today in the Bible, we're going to read out of Psalms. Psalms is a wonderful book written by King David, the Psalms of David. And David was a very emotional man, was very much driven by his passion and his zeal. And we're always finding David doing something hilarious, right? He's dancing until his clothes fall off. He's battling and he's conquering over Goliath, and his gestures are always so huge, but that also comes with the price of with huge joy and huge victory and huge celebration comes a lot of heaviness and sorrow and sadness. And so we're going to read out of Psalms 31:10, getting right into the word this morning. Well, this afternoon, it being 12. It's the last day of the month. It's February 28th. Hopefully you had a great February. Hopefully you've been able to experience and feel the love of God as you've gone through this week and this month. And if you haven't, just know that brighter days are coming. And it's because, and thanks to, our ability to be able to properly manage our emotions, that we're going to be able to execute the month of March, maybe even better than we executed in February. So we're going to read Psalms 31:10 today. And let's go ahead and back it up to verse 9. He says, David writes in Psalms 31, verse 9, "Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. Mine eye is consumed with grief. Yea, my soul and my belly. For my life," verse 10, "is spent with grief, and my years with sighing. My strength faileth because of mine iniquity, and my bones are consumed." That seems like a pretty heavy position that David has found himself in. I'm reading out of the King James Version, and let's read it one more time in verse 9. "Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. Mine eye is consumed with grief. Yea, my soul and my belly. For my life is spent with grief, and my years with sighing. My strength faileth because of mine iniquity, and my bones are consumed." King David here is in a position to where he is recognizing where his focus is. His focus, namely, being on grief, because grief comes in seasons. Do not be surprised that you will have to walk through seasons of grief. That's why we're talking about it beyond just the loss of a loved one. I think so many times we associate death and grief that we don't often recognize that sometimes, depending on our emotional state, losing a parking spot or the death of a parking spot can equally create within us emotions of grief and instant sadness. King David here is saying, I'm finding myself in constant sadness. I'm finding myself grieving loss consistently. It comes up from my belly. Nowhere can I turn to lift this weight of this grief that I am under. Now, please don't get me wrong. Don't misinterpret when I'm saying that grief can be equated between losing a loved one and losing a parking spot. That is not the intent of what we're talking about here. What I'm talking about is the emotional state that we find ourselves in when we experience loss. And if we do choose to put the same level of intensity based on certain situations, then unfortunately we may end up coming off as being unempathetic to other people in their times of grief and their times of sorrow. So it's up to us to maintain a form of emotional stability and proper perspective as to what constitutes grief and what constitutes loss. Now, if you move up a little bit further in the book of Psalms, 31 verse 3, David says, "For thou art my rock and my fortress. Therefore, for thy name's sake, lead me and guide me." We see the constant struggle between who we seek for leadership and who we seek for guidance. King David was not immune to it. Even being a man after God's own heart, he still had to ask the Lord to lead him and to guide him. And as we can see in verse 10, when he's talking about the fact that his focus remains only on grief and being constantly surrounded by grief, we recognize that his focus is not necessarily being led and being guided. However, he is walking through it. And in his walking through grief, and in his walking through these heavy emotions, he's finding the Lord. He is finding that he is being led. He's finding that he is being guided because he asked, and he's confessing honestly the way that he is feeling. You are an amazing, well-equipped son or daughter of God. and in your identity as son and daughter of God, the way that you can go now directly to the Father and ask Him to lead you, you can ask Him to lead you through every single situation. And you can even ask Him to lead you through those strong emotions in order to find a stable place in which your emotions do not go up or down based on the things that are being handed to you. Scripture also says that He will not give you anything more than you can handle. And how many times have we found ourselves going, man, you must think that I can handle a heck of a lot. Well, He does think that you can handle a lot. He does think that you can handle a heck of a lot, probably a lot more than you believe that you can handle, because the trying of our faith builds patience, and patience having its perfect work means that as we take a deep breath and as we allow the Lord to work within us, the author and the finisher of our faith, that we will be encouraged, that we will be able to go further than we ever thought possible, that we would be able to imagine greater than we ever thought we were capable of, that we would be stronger, braver, bolder, and more empowered to have the victorious moments without the super high emotional highs and the emotional lows, that we could consistently walk a tightrope with tension but successfully balanced, because we have balanced our emotions, because we can handle grief with empathy, because we can look at it from a position of love. I love Him because He first loved me. Well, you know what? Jesus grieved. Jesus wept, but it did not keep Him from His mission. It did not keep Him from being able to step forward and be steadfast in His faith, that what He was doing was the right thing at the right time for the right moment for all of history. In the Bible, there's this time when Jesus is baptized. And as He comes up from out of the water, a dove appears, and we all hear from heaven the voice of the Lord, the audible voice of the Lord say, "Here is my Son, in whom I am well pleased." We also desire to hear those same words spoken about ourselves. This is my daughter, in whom I am well pleased. This is my Son, in whom I am well pleased. And that has been made available to you as you walk in the full ownership and the full identity that you are chosen, that you have been given the spirit of adoption in which you cry out, Abba, Father, Daddy, Lord. You are my King. You are my righteousness. You are the fortress in which I run to. That I know that I'm experiencing this level of grief right now, that this level of loss that I'm undergoing right now, because I have also experienced what it means to feel love and to be loved. But loss isn't the end. It's just the beginning. I think that I work so much on sound bites. Not intentionally. It's just kind of like part of the reason why my Build Me Up ebooks are 40 pages long is because I'm attempting to create content that's easily digestible. That if you decided to hit pause or hit stop and walk away, that you've received something. I've learned to be able to walk into narrow, tight frames and be okay with it. But not everyone knows when to stop, and not everyone knows that it's okay to stop. There's an algorithm or something with YouTube that you need to stay on YouTube and go for 45 minutes, or you need to stay on for an hour, because the longer you stay on, then the more visibility you have and the more watch hours you have, and then it becomes monetized. Well, I'm not looking to be monetized. Would monetization be nice? Absolutely. Would I love to be able to sell more books? 100%. Would I be happy if you shared and liked these messages, if they found you encouraged, if you found yourself encouraged. Yes, but I'm not going to grieve when you don't. And I'm not going to grieve when my analytics, as I look through and I see the amount of viewers that we've received, are not very high. Because that's not what this is about. This See You Friday is about me sharing my heart with you and being able to spend time with you and hopefully get to encourage you through different topics. The Build Me Up books were designed to encourage you to be able to be something that you could hand to a friend, that you could hand to somebody else, and you could recognize that they're going to say things, the book's going to say things for you that you've been desiring to be able to say, that you've been hopefully wanting to say. And so if these booklets, and when you hand them to somebody else, can do that speaking for you, then I've done my job. Good job. Jessica builds a better tomorrow. Jessica builds hope. I just wanted to take a minute and say thank you. We've done, a handful of See You Fridays. I'm ending the month of February with this final See You Friday for the month of February. All of January now and all of February, every Friday, you've invited me into your home and into your space on your phone. And I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a great 2 months, and let's see where the next 10 months carries us. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching. See you next Friday in March. God bless you. Have an awesome rest of your week and a great weekend too.
It's not enough to just say, I agree to disagree in a humph and then be mad and then go away with your brother. That's not what the relationship between a brother and sister are about. I have 7 children. We have a rule in our house. We do not go to bed mad. And I have to listen, because part of parenting and part of it being a good parent, in my opinion, is a parent who's paying attention and listening, and they can tune in and they can hear when that irritating sound gets a little too much, and then you have to say, stop, time out. The whole house has to stop because somebody is off and you got to make it right. Because when we don't make it right, when we just go away and we don't resolve the situation, we're giving the enemy a foothold. We're giving the enemy an opportunity to come in and just exasperate it and make it worse.